I'll call the meeting to order. Is any public comment? Anybody else who?
No, I just want everyone to know that I am at the Village of Saxtons River Firehouse, and there's
Okay.
no public present at the moment.
I'm going to unmute Alex. You can hear me, Alex? Okay. We're on live, you know. Okay, are there any public comment? Anybody out there want to say anything? Don't see anybody listed. Okay.
No public here at the firehouse.
Okay. So entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the, when was it? April 6th meeting.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any additions or corrections? Okay.
Bless you.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. What's the next item? Your warrants and bills? I don't have my agenda in front of me.
Okay. That's right. Warrants and bills.
Yep, it's warrants and bills.
All right. You also is this a warrant, Rob? Is that what they call a warrant in the big town?
I guess.
Oh, when you list all the bills, you don't do each bill individually. Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions about any of the bills? The main cow bill for electrodes, is that part of the update? Rob?
The what? The main cow?
Main cow electrodes.
Oh, that's for a pH probe.
Is that for the
pH meter? We change the pH meters every 6 months.
So that's not part of the update?
No, that's just regular
okay
stuff.
We'll cross that out. Okay.
So Louise, there was a La Valley building supply charge for $78 that wasn't clear.
Right. Rob said that was him.
What that was for?
What was that for, Rob? Rob? Rob, you there?
I lost Rob.
Rob Wheeler. He's not moving. Uh-oh. Something happened. He got his picture.
Uh-oh.
But I did ask him and he said, yes, it was. Rob, La Valley, is that yours?
Yes, that was for the inside the piping. I don't know if anybody heard me.
Oh, right. To keep it.
No, we didn't hear it. Could you repeat?
Yeah, it was for trying to knock the noise down inside the plant so it helps for the noise outside the plant. I bought some insulation and wrapped it around the pipes in certain spots to see if it actually deadened the sound or quieted the sound down, but Matt would probably be the one to either confirm or deny that. So
no, I don't think there was much of a change, if any.
Okay. We think it is, but that's just us.
Inside or out?
Inside, there's no change really. It's quieter inside, but I think it's quieter outside too. I mean, we did the pipe outside the building, and
I saw that.
And we did the pipe the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet inside the building.
It keeps wigging out.
Okay. So
less than that.
Anyway, that charge should be billed to the wastewater upgrade.
Yeah, you could do that.
La Valley.
So Louise, if you could take it, that was the one that you had the question mark on. That should be a wastewater upgrade expense.
Okay.
And so there was one additional invoice that Art Smith made us aware of after the list of invoices was distributed. So if we could add one more to the list, it's from the Vermont Firefighter Association, and it's the annual membership dues for the members of the fire department. So there's 17 people that Art has listed for memberships, and it's $16 each. So that was a total of 272. So I think that brings the total of all of the invoices to 10,633 and 56 cents.
Could you repeat that total, please?
What?
Ben, could you repeat the total?
Yeah, so the total, with the addition of the $272 for Vermont Firefighter Association membership dues, comes to $10,633.56.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to pay these bills? And
So moved. Second.
any further discussion? You notice that at the bottom, I have the figures for the upcoming. That will
Right.
be deducted right from the checking account, from the accounts.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. All right, annual meeting. Possible locations. Celia suggested that the Catholic Church, which has been deconsecrated, it might be a possibility because you could sit, I guess, on the pews, but farther apart. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
Other possibilities are, I thought of where the church, the Christ Church in the basement there in the dining
Yeah.
room. We could be far apart there. And it's handicapped accessible. I don't know if the church is handicapped accessible. The other church.
I don't believe so.
Huh?
I don't believe so. It's stairs both at both sides.
They
The
have-
basement. The basement is, they put a
Oh, yeah,
walkway around
the
back.
basement is. I don't know what that space is like. Yeah, now, I don't know what it's like now. Also, I thought maybe someplace like the dining room at Vermont Academy or Horowitz at Vermont Academy, the theater there.
Well, the Performing Arts Center.
Yeah. Or the school, if we stay downstairs and spread out more in the gym. Any other ideas? I haven't explored any of these with anybody, but except Celia, sort of. She'd have to go to the diocese or whatever. Any other suggestions? Outdoors in a field?
There you go.
That sounds
Out-
great.
Rec
Outdoors in
area?
the new park.
Yay.
I don't think I'd get
Alright.
30 people 6 feet apart there.
At night with a megaphone.
Yeah. Whoa, somebody will love that.
I just wonder, with the St. Edmund's Church, if parking might be an issue,
Oh, yeah.
because they don't have anything other than street parking there.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that would be a concern.
Yeah. To get from the street up to the sidewalk is not easy.
Right.
Yeah. I think the basement of the Christ Church might be the best. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, does either school want anybody in the school?
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
I wouldn't
Either
think they
school.
would.
The daycare isn't operating. I don't know when they're going to come back. But it's enough, it's separated that it ought to work.
What's the date of the meeting?
June, the first, second Monday in June? June, what is it? 8th, June 8th,
June 8th?
yeah. Who knows what, I don't think, we definitely won't be all open by then. We have to do this before July 1st, right?
Yeah,
So we can, that's our fiscal year.
Yeah, well, we should have some sort of annual meeting. It seemed like the guidance that came out from the state recently this past week was providing some flexibility in how we conduct the meeting. But
Oh, yeah.
I think any of those ideas you had, Louise, are good ones.
All right. Well, I think I'll start with Christ Church because people know that area. It has good parking.
Yeah.
It's right now next to Matt.
Yeah.
He can walk. And
Oh.
Mr. What's his name? janitor there that
Ken?
Ken. He can help work with us.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Can that thing be a Zoom meeting also for people to Zoom, to do
Yeah,
the same thing
we
we're
could
doing
set it
now?
up that way. Yeah.
So everybody, you can have
Does it-
4 or 5 people there, but then other people can
Yeah,
tune in
that's
Zoom
true.
wise.
That's true. But of
Is
course,
there Wi-Fi there?
That's a good question.
Right.
there must be. I don't know.
Not sure.
I would think so. I just have to get a password and get set up.
Louise, you probably want to check on that though when you inquire. I think the cafeteria at the elementary school would also work from the standpoint of size and parking.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I do know that they're using that kitchen at the elementary school every day, so I'm not sure how they feel about having a big crowd coming into the cafeteria.
Mhm.
Well, when I say big crowd, it is our annual meetings.
25 anyway.
25 anyway.
Well, people may be desperate enough to get out, come to the meeting. You never
The
know.
whole village.
You gotta have
That's a
snacks.
good point, Carl.
Yeah. And a good excuse, right, to go out. All right. I'll investigate that then.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about this draft traffic ordinance. It's a
Okay.
lot of work you did here, Carl.
Yeah, well, I apologize for the fact that I had to send you the information twice. I
Right.
screwed up and spliced the wrong files together.
So Carl, we all have printed copies now of the original, one, but not the updated one.
Oh, of course.
Well, yours is updated. Yours is the updated one, Ben, the one I
Oh,
dropped off.
really?
I believe so,
Oh, okay.
because I updated, I have a print of the updated.
Okay.
So it would be too simple if you had all had the print copy. And of course, now I can't find mine.
I've got the correct one up on screen.
Okay, so I have talked to Everett Hammond and Wendy Harrison both about this, and they had some suggestions, results of which are what you see here. So there's a sort of a memo, which is something that Wendy had requested. She wanted me to provide her with a draft of the ordinance so that she could look at all of the specifics that we had talked about. And she asked for a memo that outlined the problem areas that we had talked to each other about, and something that stated what the goals for having an ordinance like this were. So that is what the first 2 pages cover. And then attached to that then is an updated, a revised version of the ordinance that has some corrections based and amendments based on the conversations I had with Wendy and Everett, and some mistakes that I caught after going through everything. I won't say which was the most. So one of the things that was suggested was that an ordinance like this should be as complete as possible. And so one of the things that I added, which was easy to do in the revisions, was a section on the one-way streets, because we only have one of those. But that's in the Rockingham ordinance, and it was thought it would be a good idea if that was also in the village ordinance. The Rockingham ordinance also deals with parking, and I'm not sure whether we want to include that. And so I thought I'd ask what the consensus of the trustees was, whether we could add a section that details what the regulations are.
There's two things that concern me about parking. First of all, people park on the sidewalk, which must not be allowed in the town ordinance, right? And also, Academy Avenue is very narrow. And when you park on one side of the street, it's really hard to see how somebody could park on the other side and have a fire truck go through there. So those are two things that concern me.
So what are you saying? You want parking on just one side of that street?
Well, that sounds like it would be a safer option. Because that's partly what forces people to park on the sidewalk. Besides being inconsiderate of pedestrians.
Right.
There are a lot of streets in the village that are very narrow, and I don't believe any of them are posted as no parking, are they?
I don't think so.
No.
So, I mean, we have designated spaces along Main Street, but otherwise it's just wherever you can grab a space.
Right, right. But some streets are narrower than others
Yeah,
and
So is-
and busier.
okay. So is the sense that we should add this, add parking to our traffic ordinance? Would we want parking to be something separate from traffic?
I would recommend it being separate. I think, we set out to have a traffic ordinance for the speeding issue.
Yeah.
And I would encourage the board to stick with that, and get that enacted, rather than continuing to expand the scope of this effort.
Yep, I agree.
I think we could bring it up at the annual meeting that, how do people feel about that?
I mean, it could be addressed at a later date, but I don't.
Yeah.
Really needs to be commingled with the speeding issue.
Yeah,
Well,
Yep.
okay.
that's fine with me. I'm not anxious to go investigating that right away.
Okay,
And we must have some sort of parking ordinance in place somewhere because we have the winter parking ban, and that's got to be documented someplace.
Well, that would be at the town level.
Is that at the town level and not the village level?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah, and it might make perfectly good sense to leave the parking issues at the town level.
yeah.
okay,
We're not going to lose any
I
revenue
agree.
yeah.
on the parking issue. That's what we're concerned with the speeding,
Right.
losing revenue.
Right. So,
don't
what do we need? Are we going to go through this document here or?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment before I forget, a comment back. And it said about sticking to the speeding issue. One of the reasons that I went beyond that originally and included the stop signs and because it was easy, the one-way streets, is that I know that the sheriff parks in front of my house. And one of the things that they look for is stop, whether or not people stop at the road. That's a violation for which there's a potential fine. And so it seemed to me that since revenue was one of our objectives, it might not be a bad idea to
Mhm.
include that in this
Oh, I
way.
agree.
They fit reasonably together. But I'm also quite happy not to go beyond to parking. I think that that's a more difficult issue. And it would probably, if we wanted to address, for example, Academy Avenue, it would involve something that's not at all covered by town ordinance. And that might be a little bit more hoops to jump through.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
What's the
So-
process for
So
this?
the signs, the stop signs need to be added to this? Is that what you're saying?
They are, the
They-
stop signs and yield signs and one-way street are all
Are
in the
part-
latest version
Article 4.
that you have. Yeah.
Okay,
So Article 4 is the stop and the yield at intersections, and Article 5 is the one-way street.
yep, got it.
So Carl, in the memo that you included in what you distributed, you
Mhm.
outline a number of things that differ between the ordinance that you've drafted and the current town ordinance.
And also things which might differ between the current signage and the ordinance that we drafted. Yeah.
Right. So we discussed this a little bit, I think the last time we met,
Mhm.
about the fact that there was some inconsistencies between the town ordinance and the current signage.
That's
Um,
correct. Yeah.
Did you discuss those issues when you met with the town officials?
I did. And the response was sort of not sure. So Everett Hammond was not really certain about how any of these limits were set. He had not been serving at the time. Wendy had said that it would be something to look into,
Okay.
where the signs and the ordinance were inconsistent. Now, one of those places was on Saxtons River Road coming in from Grafton, where it's posted at 30. And I had misread the ordinance, that it was, the ordinance stated 40. It actually states 25 miles per hour in the ordinance.
Okay.
So there's still a discrepancy. I think that 30 miles an hour along that section of the road is more reasonable than 25. There's nothing but a field there on one side and a bank in the woods on the other. And nobody's going to drive 25 miles an hour along that stretch,
Right.
which is something that the League of Cities and Towns says you shouldn't make the speed limit slower than anybody will reasonably obey. So I think I'm suggesting that we should stick with that 30 miles an hour as it's posted currently. That does create a little bit of a problem where the signage is not consistent with the ordinance. But it's a problem for the town as well as for us.
Okay. But in that case, I think that's reasonable. Can we talk about the other situations where there's a discrepancy? Because I think it's important that we be cognizant of where we're imposing something different than in that case, we're actually putting in place a more lenient speed limit than what the town ordinance currently states. So
Yeah.
I don't see any issue there.
So one issue in which I
But
propose that
we're
it be more
we've
stringent.
written up a more stringent.
So one place I was suggesting something more stringent is Hartley Hill Road.
Okay.
So there's a short stretch, it's about 200 feet of that road that is within the village limits. And the ordinance specifically sets a speed limit higher than 25 miles an hour there, and a limit of 35.
I thought the town ordinance stated there was a 25-mile-an-hour limit within the village of Saxtons River.
Well, my understanding after talking to Wendy, although this is something I would want to confirm, is that a specific limit above 25 supersedes the generic one.
Yeah.
I see.
But when I had talked earlier with the sheriff, with Sergeant Lakin, he had said that one problem is if you have inconsistencies like that in the ordinance, that if they give a ticket for being 25 and some lawyer says, well, but your ordinance is written says 35, then the citation won't hold. And the League of Cities and Towns attorney that I talked to made the same point. You don't want to have any ambiguity or possible conflict like that, which is why I went through and listed all of the streets in the town rather than just making a blanket statement. It's more paper and a little bit more time, but it makes everything clearer. And I think that it will be more palatable to the sheriff when we get to the point of presenting it to them for their opinion. So
Okay, so
I am suggesting that the speed limit there should be 25 on the part within the village.
which is consistent with the portion of the town ordinance that states a 25-mile-an-hour limit everywhere within the village of Saxtons River.
That's right. And there is also a public safety reason for doing that, which is that that's a bad corner where Westminster Street and Westminster West Road and Hartley Hill Road all come together.
Yeah.
I know because I live on that corner. There's a big iron post that's been bent over by people running into it. The basement wall and our house was run into by a car not making the turn, trying to avoid someone coming off Hartley Hill Road. And I see people come flying down Hartley Hill Road, well over even 35 miles an hour, not stopping and breezing on down. So it's an accident waiting to happen. And I think that having a transition down to 25 miles an hour before you get to that corner makes sense.
Well, there's also a stop sign there, right?
Yeah, and people not stopping at the stop signs is a separate issue.
Right, so if you're gonna comply with the stop sign, you probably need to be down to 25 miles an hour within 200 feet of the stop sign anyhow.
Exactly.
So those suggested stop signs.
All right. But I think importantly, in my mind, we're not in conflict with the town ordinance. The town ordinance states 25 miles an hour throughout the village.
Mhm.
And we're retaining that requirement for that portion of Hartley Hill that's within the village.
Yeah.
So I don't
What-
think there's a discrepancy there.
I think that whether or not.
Well, there
something-
would have
something-
to be a sign put up, right?
There would have to be a sign put up.
Right
yeah.
at the village limit. And what's the road posted for? 30 or 35?
35.
35.
I believe it's 35. You know, I never pay attention to the posted sign on that road. It might be posted at 30.
Where-
But
where is-
but the only signage that's on it, I believe, is beyond the village limit. So,
Yeah, interestingly, so that could create a potential issue if the signage says 35 and we're trying to enforce a 25-mile-an-hour ordinance. You know, I would like it for the village not to get into the position where we have to repost signage.
Yeah. And add a bunch of signs because you'd have to put one in both directions right there.
Right.
So turning onto Hartley Hill off from back Westminster Road, is it posted right there, like by your house?
no, I don't think so. I think that the posting, boy, I should remember this better than I do, but I look at it every day, and so I don't remember. I believe that the sign is beyond the village limit. It's not right at the corner.
Yep. So if we were to,
It's up the road a little bit along our line, and I think it's past the village limit.
so if we were to change that 200-foot section, we're going to add 2 25-mile-an-hour signs.
But realistically,
I
I'm
don't know,
not sure.
the speed limit coming onto Hartley Hill Road from either Westminster Street or Westminster West Road is already 25, and they're both posted. So the change going up Hartley Hill Road is not till you get outside the village limit.
I just asked you that if there was a sign posted when you turn onto it.
No, there's a sign posted on the other two streets, not on Hartley Hill Road.
Right.
We would not need to post that portion at 25 miles an hour, I don't think, because the limit is already 25 miles an hour on the
Yeah.
other street. And I think you assume that unless it's posted as something different, you maintain your current speed.
Correct.
If you don't have to do that, there are an awful lot of streets in this village that don't have a speed limit sign, that are relying on the signs posted at the edge of the village.
So there's not a conflict then.
No,
Right.
there's only a conflict coming north, coming down Hartley Hill Road. And so that would have to be posted.
Hmm.
And once you get past the village, it should be posted at whatever the town limit is, but that would not be our problem.
If it's going to require us to post a sign, then I would suggest we not include that
Right.
in the ordinance. I don't think the village needs to be posting speed limit signs. But if
what the-
if we put it in there and we don't post the sign, I don't see how somebody can be going 35 miles an hour and make that stop within 200 feet.
No, I don't think they
I
can.
mean, the only way they're going to maintain 35 miles an hour is if they're going to run that stop sign. In which case, the ticket should get written up for running the stop sign.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, for both, presumably. For exceeding the speed limit and for running. the stop sign.
Right, but then you get into an issue of the signage.
Yeah.
I suspect that if for some reason we put this ordinance in as it's written and and the sheriff writes, 30 or 40 tickets for that one spot and they all get thrown out, we could go back and change this. Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes, I don't know how many tickets get written. So I have a question. How many of the signs that are currently in the village has the village put up?
None.
That's what I thought. So I would think that if a sign needs to be put up, that would be something that the town would do.
But the town's only going to put up signs that are consistent with the town's ordinance.
Well, but as you say, the town ordinance says within the village limits, the speed limit would be 25. I
Right, but it
think
also
that-
says 35 on Hartley Hill. So,
Well, I brought up that conflict to
yeah.
To Wendy, and so, I think maybe I could take a look and in that memo say it really should be posted at 25 because it's within the village limit.
Well, it sounds to me like the issue is not with people exceeding instead of 25 at that location. It's with people running the stop sign. That seems like the issue, and that's easy to address. I mean, if the police or the sheriff are gonna look for an infraction, they should just watch for people rolling that stop sign.
Okay, I see your point. I think that it would be safer, even if there's a stop sign there, to have the lower speed limit. But if we don't want to mess with it, we don't have to.
Well,
We could put the suggestion through and see what the feedback is too.
there is the law is that it's 25 in the village, but the problem is people wouldn't know where that limit is if they're coming down the hill. There's no indication that you're starting in the village.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we just leave that one as it is and just ask the town of Rockingham if they'll put up 2 signs? If they say no, then it's no.
Okay,
And that's,
Okay.
I got a question.
yeah,
Well, if the town has an ordinance and the Saxons River has an ordinance that does the speed limit, what's the town from saying to Saxons River, if you have the ordinance for speed limit, then you buy and purchase and maintain all the speed limit signs in the village of Saxons River? What's stopping them from doing that?
well, we pay taxes for the town to, we're not holding back taxes.
No, but
for
you're
the-
having your own ordinance in the village of Saxons River.
Right.
So why should the town pay for this signage for the speed limits? For the ordinance that the village of Saxons River has?
It's not for the village's ordinance, it's for the town ordinance. The signage is to reflect the requirements of the town of Rockingham or traffic ordinance.
So we're not having the Village of Saxons River traffic ordinance?
We would have, there would be two ordinances. If we were to pass an ordinance for the Village of Saxons River, it would have no effect on the Town of Rockingham ordinance.
Does the town collect any of the fines?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're collecting
Okay,
all of them.
So
That's why we're going through this.
okay, so that's the difference. They would not be collecting the fines that would pay for the signs. So no fines, no signs. That may
You're
be
right. So, well, that's a good question, Rob.
Well, I think, you know, that
happened.
might be an issue we might want to explore with the town. I don't, okay, I agree. I can see the Rockingham Select Board coming out and saying something like that. But I don't know what the town responsibility is, even if the village has a separate ordinance.
Here's a good question for you. Does the Village of Bells Falls, they have separate police department. Who pays for the signage in Bellows Falls? I'll bet us Rockingham taxpayers pay for all the signs that are in Bellows Falls. Crosswalk signs and speed signs and stop signs and yield signs, because it comes out of the budget, I would assume, for the roads, maintenance of roads and sidewalks, right?
Yeah, I think so. I believe you're correct. I don't know.
Rob, what do you think?
I don't know the answer, but more than likely, yeah, that's what happens. I'm just trying to think of outside the box where the trustees of the select board, Rockingham Select Board, this place, to say, you guys want your ordinance because you want to collect revenue for speeders and stop signs. I can see them coming back and saying, then you guys support and maintain the signage. But
Rob,
it happens to be,
here's
yeah.
the important point, though, is that the only reason why we want to collect the fines is for tickets that are written by the sheriff that we're paying for supplemental coverage. So it's an expense directly incurred by the village residents to hire the sheriff speed coverage. And you know, when that sheriff writes the tickets, we're looking for the village to recoup some of the expense of hiring the sheriff. That's the reason for the ordinance.
Yeah, I understand.
All right, is there any other issues with?
Yeah, there are a couple, and these are maybe kind of minor points, but it's not clear to me that there's a clear understanding of where the village limits actually are. So the town ordinance raises the speed limit going east, at a point somewhere to the west of Maple Street Extension. Is Maple Street Extension within the village? Do we collect taxes on any houses on the street?
Yeah, when it goes down, and I don't know if it's at the turn.
Which?
Some of them, right? I don't have a map.
You mean?
So there is a map on the last page of that handout, which is the V-Trans map.
Yeah.
And according to that map, the village limit is right where Maple Street Extension comes into 121. Now, but that's kind of an approximate map. The town ordinance, I think, is assuming that the river is the village boundary, because it sets this. It raises the speed limit at a point, 0.06 miles west of that intersection, which I think would put it right in the middle of the river.
I don't think we collect taxes on the property that used to be the restaurant there.
We don't.
And that would be Maple Street Extension.
So we do not collect taxes from there.
So on the other side of the river, we don't collect taxes. Right?
All right. You mean, oh, okay. Yeah. The old Averill's
Yeah, yeah,
restaurant.
yeah.
Yeah, it's in Rockingham.
So I would say like at the beginning of the bridge, that's the end.
I was thinking Oak Street.
Carl, what part of the ordinance does this refer to?
Oh, this refers to how far the 25-mile-per-hour limit on Main Street goes to the east.
On Main Street?
Main Street, yeah. So if you're going
Why
east,
don't you just state it as the village limit?
That's what it says.
So it'd be at the bridge, right?
well, no, that's
other
my
side-
question.
the other s-
Is the village limit at the bridge or is the village limit east of the bridge? I've written the ordinance
Looks like it's
from the village limit. But the town ordinance specifies a certain distance west of the Maple Street Extension intersection.
Okay,
And I think that that's probably puts it at the bridge.
okay.
I don't know because I haven't gone down and pasted out.
Is this approximate village line? Is that your approximation or where'd that
This
come?
is the V-Trans.
Oh, V-Trans?
Well, the way the line is drawn for Main Street or 121, it looks like it's right at the Maple Street Extension Road.
Right,
So it's well, it's past the end of the bridge.
right.
Yeah. That's the way this map, that's what this map would indicate.
All right, so if somebody is gonna go to court and and they pull this map up and bring it in with them, then that's where it is.
I'm
Right.
sorry, I don't follow. So right now, the speed limit is 45 miles an hour from some point west of Maple Street Extension, probably the end of the bridge, going on towards Bellows Falls. The ordinance, as I was drafting it, says that the speed limit is 25 miles an hour to the village limit, which is at Maple Street Extension.
Where is the new 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign posted coming in the village? It's not right.
It's
Right
posted
at
on the
bridge.
west end of the bridge, this side of the river.
Right at the bridge or?
It's on the bridge, right at the end of the bridge, on the west end of the bridge.
West. So that actually needs to be moved down to closer to Maple Street Extension.
Yeah,
Well, does it necessarily?
it looks like the line should be drawn closer to the bridge.
Well, that's not the property line.
No, the
Approximate village
limit-
line.
The village limit is
Yeah.
on this side of the bridge.
Huh?
Well, that's my question.
Not
Is
the,
it or is
not
it
the way that's not the way it's drawn there.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that's correct. This is their
Well, that's-
approximation.
Yeah,
they-
that's my question is whether or not this is correct.
All right, we'll have to look up the maps.
I got the Wyndham Regional map up on my phone, and it's pretty much at the intersection of Maple Street Extension and 121 is where the village border is.
I guess the question
What they
is,
have here.
how legally official is that map? So for
Oh.
example, the tax maps for the town of Rockingham don't agree with surveys. And I discovered this when they tried to adjust my taxes based on that map and they were moving the property line around where it wasn't. So somewhere there's an official survey that legally defines where the village limits are. And the Wyndham map that you're looking at, Rob, or the V-Trans map that I took off of the state site may or may not be accurate according to where the official boundaries are. So I'm thinking that one of the things that we probably need to do is make sure where those boundaries are before we try to put limits into into the ordinance.
Carl, would it simplify things if where you've got the description of Main Street listed in the ordinance, if it just read that portion from the East Village limit, period, and leave out the portion about, at Maple Street Extension?
There you go.
I mean, you just
Right.
basically you just want a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on Main Street from the East Village limit, West Village limit.
Right.
Yep.
If we don't care where that village limit actually is, that's okay. If we care about somebody hiking their car up to 45 miles an hour inside where the village limit actually is.
No. The ordinance would read that there's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit from the village limit.
And the Rockingham town ordinance reads that there's a 45-mile limit from a point somewhere west of there. So say from the bridge to Maple Street Extension. According to the town, is not a 25-mile-an-hour limit, even though that may be within the village limits.
I thought the town ordinance said 25 miles an hour within the village of Saxtons River.
Well, okay. But again, we have the question, if there are two contradictory readings in the town ordinance, which one rules?
Well, for the purposes of the village, for the purposes of the village ordinance, it would be 25 miles an hour within the village limits. We would be clarifying that.
Okay. The stretch of Highway 121, which is now 30 miles an hour, posted at 30 miles an hour, is within the village limits.
Well,
It's not within the populated region, but it is within the limit. So if we want, I don't know if we would want to argue that generic 25-mile-an-hour limit within the on the streets of the village applies everywhere. I think that if I believe that if you write a generic statement like that, and you write a specific statement for a specific street, that specific statement outweighs the general. Or let's take another example. We have a limit of 25 miles an hour within the village. We have the school zone limit of 15 miles an hour. If we argue that the limit is whatever we say for all streets within the village, then we can't have a school zone.
No, I'm not suggesting that the village make it 25 miles an hour everywhere. I'm just saying that for Main Street, we want it to be a 25-mile-an-hour limit.
Right, but you're
from the
arguing that
village limit to,
Couldn't you
maybe
just-
it's not the village limit. Maybe it is in fact Pleasant Valley Road. If you want to go to 30 beyond that, west
Couldn't
of
you
there
just
for a
say-
short
When you
stretch.
say that the speed limit in the village is 25 miles an hour, except with these exceptions, and then just ones
oh,
that
you're
are.
fine.
Yeah.
okay. I don't think, and based on my conversation with the attorney from the League of Cities and Towns, who also does not think that that is a good way to write the ordinance.
Too general?
Too general. If the
Right, but
ordinance-
you want the same effect. So
Does every town list every street?
I doubt it, but that's what was suggested. It's not onerous for us to do it. So I don't see a reason not to.
In the meantime, I'm going to go back to the original charter and read what they said, what they delineated as the boundaries.
Oh, excellent. Where is that?
It's just on a piece of paper and it's in the town hall, but I have a copy here.
Okay, no, I just wondered if I wanted to see it, where I would go to get it.
You come to me,
Okay,
but not right now.
no,
I could send
No,
you a scanned copy.
no, that's fine. If you have,
You
if
know,
you
it's
have,
written out in the old handwriting.
if you have the charter that lays that out, that
Okay.
would be great to have.
Okay, I'll send you. All
Um,
right. So what is the process? We're still working on this, right?
we're still working on this. So
Okay.
the process right now is that I'm going to iron out these discrepancies and set
Okay,
something off for the town to look at.
all right.
If we come to some sort of an agreement about what will happen with the signs, and what will happen with any of these issues we've come up with, then we would want to talk to the we would want to talk to the sheriff and make sure that the sheriff is comfortable the way it's written from an enforcement point of view, that it meets their requirements. We would want to have the League of Cities and Towns take a look at it, and we would want an attorney look at it. And the League of Cities and Towns provides that service to do a legal review as opposed to just a look over and see what the issue is.
Okay.
We're a ways away from doing that yet.
all
The
right.
next step is to iron things out with the town.
Okay,
So if you're going to iron things out with the town, I want to make sure I understand what I should be doing here. So do we want to more loosely define Main Street as from village limit to village limit? Is that the consensus?
Well, I think if it's unclear where the east limit is, then just leave out the specificity on that end of the road.
Okay. If the charter makes it clear where the east limit is. So if the charter says the east limit is at Maple Street Extension, do we want to then, do we want to then deal with the conflict between where the East Village limit is and where the town ordinance says the speed limit changes?
let's wait.
Let me put the question another way. When I next talk to Wendy, maybe I should ask her if there is a discrepancy between two parts of the town ordinance, which one rules? So in other words, if there's a statement that says speed limit on streets within the village is 25, there's another one that says the speed limit on Main Street is 35 along this portion of Main Street. Which one is the governing ordinance? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think we have a conflict like that, though, do we?
Well, we might.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
So we have that, okay, so we have that conflict on Hartley Hill Road, which we may not care much about, but that's the same sort of issue.
Okay. You could ask her about the signs.
And ask her about the signs.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on this?
Yeah. One other point, school zones. So the three streets that border the school, Grove Street and School Street and Burke Hill Street.
Mhm.
Where do we particularly want the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit to be? The ordinance only sets a 15-mile-an-hour limit on School Street. And they set it for the entire length of the street, from Main Street to Grove Street.
Not on Grove Street?
Grove Street is posted school zone ahead, 15-mile-an-hour limit ahead. That is what the,
Oh,
that's the meaning of that sign that's posted right by Main Street,
hmm,
speed limit ahead. And then on Grove Street, there's a post, it's posted at 15 miles an hour from School Street to Burke Hill Road, Burke Hill Street. So it's actually 15-mile-an-hour limit there.
Yeah.
But that's not written into the ordinance. It's just posted
Into our ordinance or the town ordinance?
into the town ordinance.
Okay,
Burke Hill Road is likewise posted with school zone ahead,
mhm.
speed limit 15 ahead signs, and they're different on different ends, different directions of the street. But there's not a clear indication of where the 15-mile-an-hour limit starts. So my,
Carl, when you talked to the town, did you ask about that?
yes, I talked about that, and that's one of the things that she wanted. That's why it's written into this memo what the discrepancy is, because that's something they wanted to look at further. Everett Hammond did say that that's something that needs to be clear where the school zones are. He made that comment, but he did not have an opinion on where they ought to be.
Right. And I noticed that the way you wrote the draft up was that not only did you extend the limit from School Street to also include Grove Street and Burke Hill, you also shifted it from school hours to a 24-hour.
Okay, could you repeat that sentence? I got a lot of twang in there. I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Okay, sorry about that. So it looked like in the draft that you provided that you extended the 15-mile-an-hour limitation to School Street, Grove Street, and Burke Hill, and also extended it from school hours to 24 hours.
Yep, that was another question I wanted to bring up. Any comment on extending the hours?
I think it's good because there's people at the playground at, after school. There are people going and coming from VA at all hours. There's activity around there other than just during the school hours. Even on the weekends and.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I'm concerned when we are starting now to impose additional restrictions from what's currently in the town ordinance, because are we opening ourselves up now to having to do a traffic study, engineering studies, and also now take responsibility for signage?
So the town ordinance only says during school hours?
On School Street.
The town ordinance says it's 15 miles an hour along the entire length of School Street, Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m.
Oh, so you could go faster in the evening?
Pardon?
You could go faster in the evening?
Presumably you could go 25 miles an hour in the evening. The signage does not say that. The signage just says 15 miles per hour.
Yeah.
There is no signage on any of the streets that indicates the restriction is for school hours. They all say 15-mile-an-hour limit. There's nothing in the town ordinance about a 15-mile-an-hour limit on either Burke Hill Road or Grove Street.
Hmm.
They are posted, but they're not in the ordinance.
Hmm.
So one of the things that the town people had said is that the signs and the ordinances have to be made to correspond to one another.
And
So
that's,
even if it's just a town ordinance, it has to be taken care of,
so they need to update their ordinances.
or they need to update their signs.
Oh,
One or the other.
okay.
They need to.
And I think the best move for us would be to yeah, I would suggest that we write our ordinance to correspond with the current town ordinance. If they modify it to include Grove Street and Burke Hill Street, then it would be fine for us to include those. But if it only includes School Street, then I would write ours to only include School Street. That would be my recommendation.
I have a problem with that from a safety perspective. I think around the elementary school, we want that lower speed limit.
Then I think we should work with the town to have their ordinance revised.
Yes,
Okay,
we should request that they revise their ordinance. It's a one-way street, it's narrow. They've got a big curve.
It's already been posted that way. That was probably their intent.
Yeah.
It may just be an issue that the ordinance never got updated to reflect the decision to add the signage.
so which street are you talking about, Louise?
School,
That's already in the ordinance.
okay. But
That's
you
the
said-
only one that's in the ordinance.
But you said that's only during school hours.
The ordinance says during school hours.
Okay,
The signage does not.
okay,
The other streets do not say anything in the ordinance, but they are signed as a speed limit. So I should suggest that then we should work on updating the town ordinance to include
yeah.
the schools.
Mhm.
Okay. And Louise, you just made a comment about VA that I hadn't even considered. I had thought that it would be sufficient for the school zone to just be around the elementary school. Do you think we should include it so that it covers along Burke Hill Road where the drives entries to VA come down?
Pretty narrow there, and it's hard to see. And there are people parked at the school in the lunch area. I don't know, it's not 15 now?
In the ordinance as written, no. The
But we're-
signage is posted, yes.
Okay, then the 15th, the ordinance should match the signage.
Okay. Okay, so the signage goes along Burke Hill Road from Levitt Lane, whatever that first road up the hill is,
Yeah,
on down, I assume to the next corner, rather to Grove Street, although it doesn't say end of school zone anywhere. So you think that we should maintain that entire length of Burke Hill Road as school zone because of VA traffic?
well, not just VA traffic, there's kids walking to school there.
Okay,
It's a very narrow place. Anybody else agree?
Sure.
yeah.
Okay,
And then how about Academy Avenue?
what about it?
Well, is that a concern?
What's that?
Is it a concern of?
My phone.
Oh.
Because
No,
a
I don't
concern
think,
the kids might be walking along Academy Avenue to get to the school.
no, there's sidewalks there.
So we don't need to worry about
There's
making
no
that.
sidewalk on Burke Hill.
If I could jump in here,
Sure.
I think we're getting way off track if we're talking about making changes to the speed limit requirements. That was not the scope of this project, at the beginning or even now. We just want to have a village ordinance that reflects the current speed limits so that when we hire the sheriff for supplemental speed control, he can write tickets against the village ordinance. If we get into expanding this scope to changing the speed limit requirements throughout the village, it's going to require an extensive study. We're never going to get this done. The fact that there's a discrepancy between the town posted speed limit in those school zones and what's written in the ordinance should be addressed and get, reconciled with the town. And then our ordinance should reflect the same thing as the town ordinance.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had some background noise and I missed most of what you just said. Could you repeat it again?
Sure. I think if we start talking about changing speed limits on Academy Ave and elsewhere in the village, we're never going to get this project done. We just want to have a village ordinance that reflects the current speed limits. So if there's a discrepancy between what the town ordinance says and what's posted for speed limits, so it's unclear what the current requirements are for speed limits on Burke Hill and Grove Street, and possibly even School Street, just work with the town to resolve that conflict and then write the village ordinance to reflect the current speed limit requirements.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, so clarify then. If there is a conflict, you're suggesting that we should work with the town, have the town modify its ordinance, and then write our ordinance to reflect the modified town ordinance? Am I understanding you correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
okay, are we ready to move on?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thanks for all your work, Carl.
Well, my life's just gotten more complicated, but I'll see what I can do.
Rob has been very patient. Rob, do you have something to
Rob.
report?
Well, Carl, the other, I guess,
Oh,
one
sorry.
last thing. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you at the moment, yes.
If you're not able to get, if the town's not in a position to change the ordinance, which they very well may not be in a position to change it, then we should just write ours to reflect what the town ordinance currently reads.
Right.
Ready?
Okey doke.
All right, Rob, you're on.
I was just here for the slips that you had, and I didn't know if you guys had anything with the
Hmm.
wastewater upgrade, where we're at with it. Any questions or concerns?
You're the one that
Yeah, what's being done about the humming noise?
I haven't heard anything from anybody for a couple months now.
So we had to finalize. I mean, did that happen? End of the 1 year project? Have we gone by that date?
The warranty, I would say, yeah, it was April
Well,
something.
Yeah, it was April, right. So no one they're on file as being a problem. Do you have other things other than that noise?
I don't know. I'm sure there is, but I don't know right offhand. I don't have it in front of me what there is. But I know the noise is there.
Yeah.
We resolved some of the UV issues with the motor's been replaced. Electricians, we've got a couple minor things. I know the SCADA, the actual picture on the SCADA screen is not what the Parkson's schematic. It's from another SBR plant. So it doesn't reflect what we have. It's a minor thing, but it's a major thing type of deal. It's somebody else's system.
They've got ours.
System.
And they've got ours. Somebody else.
No. It's a. I think what it is before before they split off, it was actually where those guys all worked for their system. So, which all they do is they got to send it. Dexter's got to get the schematics or whatever, the drawing from Brad, from Parkson's, and have them rewrite it in the SCADA program.
Mm-hmm.
Have you asked him to do that?
Heard from Dexter for months.
Oh,
Well, I would assume, I would think that Dexter needs to be contacted, right? Just
I
so
agree.
we can have all these little things taken care of.
And I know you don't notice the noise difference, but I think it is not as loud. And I'm wondering if we insulated all the pipes in there, if that wouldn't help with, I mean, I just took Roxol sound pipe and wrapped it and then put saran wrap around. It's not like the regular pipe insulation they have for hot water pipes. If you did
Right.
something like that with a denser foam, if that would help with the noise restrictions and have it, wrapped. It's just my suggestion. I don't know how much it would cost. I don't know who would do it, if it would be a plumbing company where they would get that if there's different foam stuff. But that's just my suggestion, because I think it has helped just inside, and I think it has helped outside, but you guys are the ones here in a distance, you still hear that hum. But I don't think it's as loud.
Rob, did you do that pipe insulation at the request of the engineer?
No, I just did it. I talked about doing it months and months ago, and I finally just said, you know what, let's just try it this spring. A couple weeks ago is what we did. It hasn't been on very long, but it was one of those things that I just wanted to, like I said, I bought a
See if it
bag
made a
of Roxol and some saran wrap, and I just wrapped it in certain places to see if it would actually densen the sound. And like I said, I think it has, but it's not the whole pipe system. It's just in certain spots. The elbows where the air turns.
Right.
To me, it's getting like a harmonic hum from it. But
Right.
I don't, like I said, I think it's worth at least investigating how much it would cost to do all the pipes in a proper installation wrap.
Well,
Isn't this,
share that information with. Oh, go ahead, Carl.
isn't it still Dexter's responsibility
Yes.
to solve this?
Right.
So I'm just
Right.
concerned about taking on too much of this and letting it lapse to the point where we're now liable for a problem that may not be that easy to solve.
Right.
It may be that insulating all the pipes will solve the problem. It may not. I don't know. That's outside my expertise, but I'm not sure that we want to commit ourselves to following that and let the people really responsible for it off the hook.
Right.
It could get
Well-
pretty expensive, and we shouldn't have to do it.
Right. Couple things to go with that. I appreciate, Rob, you trying that out. And I would assume that if all the pipes were insulated, that it would make a difference. We can't leave that stuff on there, because if there's any problems with anything, we altered what was there. And I think that, the contractor should be solving the problem and paying for the fix. And I guess if Dexter doesn't get back to somebody, maybe he needs to, then maybe we jump up again like we did with the last guy and send an email to the co-president.
Well, Rob, I think, I agree. I agree with that. But Rob, I think what you've done is excellent. Where you tried something and it looks like it's made an impact. So you to share that with Dexter at Tata and Howard. Let him know that you put some insulation on some of the piping. It seems to have made a difference. But the expectation would be that he would then take that and run with it. Flush that out with the contractor or with the equipment suppliers to decide if that's something that they want to try as part of the warranty work on eliminating the noise issue. But it's good that you've determined that may be a possible solution to the problem.
Yeah, no, I'll give Dexter a call, see where he's at.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds logical that might be a solution. I don't know if it's something that they had thought of and not acted on yet or not, but
yeah.
Well, I don't know how long we're going to let this go on without really pushing. more aggressively. I mean, it's not a maybe. I mean, Rob knows what it sounds like inside the plant and out, and it's incorrect. And yes, I know they've had professionals come down and they say, yep, it hums a little bit. Don't know why. And if this just is left unattended, then we own it the way it is. So.
Yeah. Well, Rob, if you could send an email to Dexter letting him know what you tried, copy me in on that. I mean, the past few months have been a little bit, the frequency of action has, scaled way back because
Yeah.
this is our second meeting in 3 months. So,
Yep.
It's, but yeah, no, it's definitely still on the table, as an outstanding issue that needs to be resolved.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay.
Anything else for me?
No,
All right.
okay.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
Yeah,
Thanks, Bob.
thank you.
Right.
Stay safe.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about the fire department, fire station.
I called Morton Buildings, and I think they've been in a shutdown state for a while, and I'm waiting for a call back. If I don't hear from somebody in a couple of days, I will call them again, but they sounded like the person that I was needing to talk to was not available, but a message was going to be left for them. So I will follow up with that.
All right. Are we ready for the business or is there anything else on that?
That's it on that.
Okay. All right, other business. Apparently today there was a man crossing in front of the post office and he was hit by a green truck going west.
That's what I heard.
Yeah,
So maybe
Facebook.
we need to make the sheriff aware of that. Also, the fast squad is requesting anybody who could make masks for them. They really need masks. Everything is back ordered, and as you saw, they bought hand sanitizer from the Saxtons River Distillery.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So, you know anybody who sews? Any other business?
yeah. Down here on the village property at the wastewater treatment plant, we have a motocross track
No.
cropping up down on the lower field there, and it seems to be coming into the village property. And it would be good if we could define that property line and maybe get some signs, no trespassing or no motorized vehicles or something, and putting them up down there. I had, I don't know, last year before, they have their mud bog trucks that they get out in the summertime, and
Oh gosh.
they like to test them out, and they've come down quite a ways into the village property a few times.
Where's the line?
Well, the line from the map that I have of the field across the road here, there's a 25-foot right of way going down Plant Road. And there's 2 pins on the right, well, they're on both sides of the road, but on the right side, there's 2 pins that abut the housing units there.
Oh.
And it appears on the map that it's a straight line to the river.
Straight line. If you went down, if you kept on going on Plant Road, you'd come. It'd be
Yeah, with the pins that are there on the right-hand side of it, if you line those up and ran the string to
straight down to the river.
Yeah, straight down the river. And it's just,
that.
yeah, they have done several things in the past. They've taken their tractor and smoothed off a little deeper into the area for snowmobiles and moved trees out of the way. And it's not horrible, but I just noticed, it's young kids and adults, and it just seems like they're encroaching. They definitely are in some instances, so
Okay.
not a big thing. What, I mean, is that having to contact DiBernardo and talking to him about it?
About what the line is?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, there's 2 pins in the ground, but you're gonna have to, get that equipment to be able to put some more pins in the ground down on the lower level, just so you know where to put signs up. So I don't know if that's anything that anyone cares about.
Well, chicken wire would do the same thing, right?
Well, yeah, but we don't know
They
whether,
knock that
when
down.
they put up their construction fence, they didn't have a clear line down there. They got it somewhat close, but it wasn't on the line.
Oh.
The remnants of that construction fence are now part of the motocross track.
Oh.
Because
Great.
they picked them up and put it, in a different area. So it just seems like it's kind of creeping. And, but I would assume that there would be some cost attributed to having them come and define that line.
Yeah.
I mean, I can call and find out if that's anything.
Matt.
Yeah.
Knowing the precise location of the line, how is that going to, I guess, affect the situation?
Well, it's gonna show where the property line is.
Mm.
So,
But that means they'll just be racing around, a few feet over.
Unless you have a barrier, they're not going to stop.
no, I think it's a good first step. I mean, not looking to put a fence all the way down there, but at least getting something in the ground down there so that if we had to go further with it. But right now they're just kind of, like I said, it's creeped. We've got 2 parts of the track, and that end of it has 2 turns, and one of them is way on the property, and the other may not be that much. So it's just a matter of saying, hey, this is where the property line is. No motorized vehicles. And then if they do, then I don't know what,
But if they move the activity to no longer be on the village property,
yeah,
does that solve the problem?
yeah, they're not on the village property.
So the issue is not a noise issue or anything like that. It's just that you're concerned that people are going onto public village property with their motor vehicles. I'm just trying to understand what the concern is from the village resident standpoint.
Well, if you want to come down, and I'll walk down there with you. Like I said, probably 2 years ago, they came down through with their tractor with a blade on it and flattened off an area well into, the roadway that goes from Plant Road down to the river.
Yeah.
You know where that is? Well,
Yeah.
they were coming through all that way.
Oh.
That's well onto the property with a Jeep with big tires, and so after that happened several times, I walked down and I go, hey, you're on village property, and that seemed to stop. But the motorcycles have started up, and it just seems to get it just seems to, like, they moved some trees out of the way and flattened off an area well into the property, and it's not well into it now, but it's definitely on it.
So changing the topography is
well, if you're not concerned with it, then I won't worry about it. There's some type of shack that the kids built that's on village property down there.
Okay.
So noise wise, yes and no. That's not my focus of this. It's not. There's noise ordinances, and they're not beyond that. So what they do on their property is what they do on their property. But I'm just seeing that it's coming on village property. That's all.
Well, do we
And like
need,
said, Ben, if you want to come down and walk down there, you can take a look at it. If it's not of concern, then it's not a concern.
Do we need to be concerned about liability if something
Well-
happens while they're
Mhm.
messing around on village property?
Yeah, that happens right on anyone's property, right? So,
I mean, perhaps it's worth it just to post where the property is.
right, but we need to know where that is
Right.
down there.
Right. But I mean, I think it would be worth a little effort or money to find out where the line is so we can post the line. But
That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about building a,
Okay, will
wall
you
to keep-
check with Bernardo Associates and see how
Sure.
much they would charge us to do a little survey there? But they may have the maps already.
You know, Rob's not on the call anymore, but would he be more aware of where the property line is?
what I heard from him, I think when they were putting up the barrier fence before construction, something was said, and he goes, "Oh, they don't know where the other pin is. You know, it was probably down on the riverbank and is gone."
Yeah.
So Rob can't definitively know
Okay.
exactly where it is.
And who owns the abutting property?
I'm not sure whose name it's in. It used to be a Simons, Barnett lived there,
Mhm.
so I don't know. I'm not looking to cause any problems with anyone. Like I said, I've just seen that they've
Yeah.
Okay.
encroaching again on village property. That's all.
All right.
Okay.
So I'll call DiBernardo and just inquire what it would cost to, flag it down there or something. All right.
Okay. Anything else?
yeah, I have just two bits of information. The first one is that the select board is going to be talking about Saxtons River sidewalks at their meeting tomorrow night and again at the following meeting. And if you're interested in what they're planning to do on sidewalks in the village, you can follow the meeting on Zoom. There's a link on the town website where the agendas are.
What time's the meeting?
6 o'clock. Meeting starts.
Okay.
So Everett told me that they are talking about widening the sidewalk on Pleasant Street up as far as Rice Lane. And that there will be talking about some other locations that they're planning on working on.
Widening the sidewalk, or they did some work there. Maybe they're just replacing the sidewalk.
Well,
No,
I
there's-
understood him to say that they would be widening it as well as replacing it.
Oh,
But,
all those sidewalks up there need to be wider.
if you really want the official details, I'd watch the meeting.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
be celebrating my birthday on Zoom
I'll make
at that time.
And the other thing which everybody may already know, is that Chuck Wise is going to be the interim town manager
Yeah.
after Wendy leaves until a replacement is found. So
Okay.
just something to know.
good to know.
So I'm not sure what's going to happen with the 4th of July at this point.
Oh, yeah.
No decision has been made. We have a bunch of American flags on our porch. And I was thinking maybe we could put those up for Memorial Day and just leave them up. Get them off my porch, for one thing. So I don't know. I doubt it's going to happen.
Really?
I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Anything else?
New?
Okay. So I forget when our next meeting is, sometime in May.
3 weeks, I think.
Okay,
Just a second, let me. Get it in there someplace.
wish everybody a happy Mother's Day.
I have it as the 25th in my notes from last week.
Okay, sounds good.
And Louise, you want me to just leave that envelope here on the table for you?
No, I don't need that.
You
I
don't
have-
need what about the
Oh,
bill
I
that
need that, just-
Art?
Yeah, that's
left.
right. I need Arts. Just leave those bills and I'll pick that up.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay. Okay, good night. Oh, I have to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Don't move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.